you've gone through a whole arc with fame, right? You were famous very young. Well, I've heard you talk about this without expecting or seeking.
Yeah.
And then you've over time lost some of the fame that you
Fame
had.
moved on.
Right.
Because it's not something that you can lose. It's something that hovers over you for a while and then moves on. You have no control of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated by there's a clip of Bill Murray saying this, and there's a clip of Ben Affleck saying the exact same thing to the point where it actually feels like plagiarism. But Bill Murray says, whenever I meet a young person that says I want to be rich and famous, I tell them, try being rich and see if that doesn't get you what you want before the fame, right? And the lesson there is that having money, actually can allow you to, if your values are good, it can allow you to just get more of what you want in life, and you can spread the wealth among your family and friends. You can do all kinds of things that people without money would struggle to do. But having fame is a much more of a double-edged sword than having money. I think that's what he was getting at. What do you think of all that?
Well, I think when people say they want fame, they want love.
Mm-hmm.
They just want love. Because they're looking at, fame is like this ephemeral idea, right? So I don't know that they're saying they want fame. They want what they think they see other people enjoying.
Mm.
They look at, I don't know, Beyonce. She came up, Beyonce or Bill Murray or whoever, Mary Tyler Moore. I don't know why all these odd names are coming to my head. And they assume what their life is. They assume that all the doors open for them. They assume that there's always a table for them at the restaurant. They assume that they're just given opportunities to do their creative work all the time. You notice like nobody says like, oh, I want to be famous like Barack Obama is famous, or like it's always somebody who's doing something, or maybe sports too. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing something that seems fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're like, oh, they always get to do something fun every day. They always have these opportunities to do all this fun stuff, as for a living. They get to, I say like the restaurants, they get to hang out with other people who are dynamic and fun, and everybody just gives them money and they can do no wrong. And really, and I say this in the book, it's something like being a toddler, right? Provided you had a mommy and daddy who liked you.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy and daddy are always applauding everything you're doing. You fed yourself or you dressed yourself. Applause, applause. You're given opportunity after opportunity to prove this genius you have to do these simple things. They'll take any scribble you've done on a piece of paper and put it on the fridge. And everything's taken care of for you. You have a place to live. They buy you food, they buy you clothes, and right. And that for a lot of people is love. So if you say just money, I would push back a little bit on that, because and you can see in a lot of the behavior, a lot of the very, very, very wealthy people, for some people this isn't true because they're not looking for this love, but you can tell the ones that are looking for that love, that appreciation, admiration, people looking at them, those stars in their eyes. Some of the very wealthy people exhibit this desire too, because they're wanting. It's not, money doesn't always solve that. What's going to solve that is, I think, you got to get a spiritual life, because it's all those things I just mentioned about this is what happens to you when you're, working in the business or, you're a musician or something like this. It's incredibly hard work. In fact, the only way you can really withstand the waiting, the rejection, the hard work that goes into making all these projects is if you're called to it. Because then you have the gas to withstand all those moments in between. And yeah, does it feel good when you've completed this project and people are applauding? Yeah, but more so, it feels good that you were faithful to that project and you delivered that project. So the rest of it is like you don't have any control over that. And yeah, when people are like wanting you and calling you and you're in demand and all that, that's a very weird feeling. It's it's not really real. We were talking about mob mentality before. It's like a frenzy. It's this weird frenzy, like you're caught in this wave and you just kind of go with it. And does it approximate love because everybody's like wanting you and they've got big smiles on their faces and all of this? Yeah, for some people, it can feel like that. But if you can get a little objectivity to that, and while you're in it, it's hard to have the objectivity, and understand this is just a wave you're in right now. And the wave will, just like anything in nature, there's going to be an ebbing and a flowing in some manner with everything in nature, including anything that happens in your life. And you just ride it for a while and then it'll, even for somebody for whom fame is sort of, they, in the life cycle of fame, they stayed here at this equilibrium, like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, people like this. Even there's gonna be an ebbing and flowing even in that position.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people get afraid when, and you don't have to be famous to be subject to this fear, but they become afraid when the flow starts to ebb.
Mm.
And they're afraid it's always going to be in the ebb. And it's not. It's always going to look at anything in nature, always cycles, not necessarily cycles to the same place again, but it always changes. Yeah.
I've heard you say something which is very close to what I've said before, which is that what people really want is not fame, but admiration, the admiration of their peers, really, the admiration of the people they respect. And often I've thought that, like through my podcast and, everything I've done, I've had, especially after moments where I've gone on primetime TV and briefly gone viral, I've had that experience of like, three people coming up to me on the streets of New York in one day. And then and usually it's because they're fans of mine and they're very polite and it's a super positive interaction. There have been some very negative ones as well, including a couple scary ones here and there. But uh, mostly my career has been as a person with a mid-sized podcast, which means once a month one of my fans spots me in public and it's just a super positive interaction and
Yeah.
I always know that I'm not actually being recognized. So I'm basically a normal person that's experienced small bouts of low level fame, nothing akin to I think being on a sitcom or a movie star in any way. But it's always struck me that really what feels a lot better than being recognized on the street is having the admiration of people I admire, right? It's the ability to send a message to a podcaster or a writer that I like and get a response and begin that relationship. Like having that level of clout it feels way more gratifying than being recognized at Starbucks.
Yeah. And that I think is a healthy position to take. It's like, their taste because their work.
Right.
And if you are part of what they like, then that means something. I've always felt that way about awards. Like I never want to be nominated for or get like an Oscar or any of these awards that are for films or critics awards or anything because I'm not, I'm not entirely clear on who the taste of the voters. I mean, I don't mean that in a I don't mean that to sound like I'm putting those people down at all, but rather if I were given an award by five filmmakers, they have a small committee, there's five filmmakers, whose work I really admire. And if they think my work is good, like that feels nice because like, well, that's nice
Mhm.
company to keep. Um, but the rest of it is, but for a lot of people, and this is something social media has done. We've quantified value instead of qualifying it. So they do just look at the numbers like, oh, so and so has, 100 million followers. Oh, they must be this, that, this, that. And it's like, no, they're actually not very good at all at what they do, but they do a bunch of this crazy stuff. And that's why people are following them, or I don't know. So yeah, I agree with you. But for a lot of people, they just look at what's valued now, and what's valued now are numbers, volume, not quality.